Good evening. Welcome to tonight's organizational update for SABR. I'm Board President Dan Levitt. Typically, the board and CEO update the membership at the annual business meeting during the convention. As our organization has grown and our initiatives expanded, we thought it might make sense to provide a virtual update this spring on where we've been and where we're going. CEO Scott Bush will be up first to provide an overview and speak about new initiatives and other upcoming events. I will next provide a board and strategic planning update. Board Vice President Allison Levin will then offer an update on research committees and local chapters. To wrap up, Treasurer Pat Philippone will provide a financial update. For those of you unfamiliar with Pat, he is the president of Seventh Inning Stretch, which owns and operates 3 affiliated minor league clubs, and a longtime minor league executive. Pat will also offer some additional biographical information with his comments. And now I'll turn it over to Scott.
Hi, everyone. Appreciate you joining us on a off-season night. It's great to see so many people engaged with the work that the organization is doing, as well as SABR governance. So, appreciate your interest in what the staff's up to and what the board's up to. I'm going to see about sharing my screen here for a brief bit of my time. So I want to, there we go. Want to really use my time to talk about things that have happened since we last got together. Dan mentioned that we hold a session like this called the annual business meeting at convention every year, where we give some updates over programs and initiatives and governance topics and work that the board and the staff are up to. So I'm going to principally focus here on some of the initiatives and programming highlights that have occurred since we were together in Dallas for SABR 53. So one of the first things that we did, actually we launched it during convention, is institutional memberships, introducing that as a concept, as a new way to engage with SABR, and specifically focusing on institutions like colleges and universities, library systems, as well as smaller sort of localized historical societies. So since we launched, and it's a great way for us to bring in organizations that are probably like-minded and share some of the same values as SABR does. And so we have been working on that since Dallas, and we've got around a dozen institutional members so far, and expecting that to grow over the rest of this year. Another item here, since we last were together, we brought the Seamheads Negro Leagues database into SABR's holdings. We're fortunate enough to work with the Seamheads group to bring that data over, and we have made that part of the layman baseball database. And so SABR now has a cohesive statistical database across baseball history, and gives us a basis to continue to update. There's some opportunities for us, specifically with the 1949 and 1950 Negro League seasons, which SABR recognizes as major, to bring those statistics into that database as well. Near the end of the year, we launched our 4th SABR Analytics certification course, bringing our suite up to 4 distinct courses. That course represents the culmination of that series. And so we don't have any present plans to expand into a 5th course, but we're certainly going to be looking at additional programming that we can build around those courses. just for a sense of scale, we've had across those four courses, we've had 548 total course registrations in the last calendar year. So there's a lot of activity in that space, and a lot of members have taken advantage of that, particularly student members. And then, of course, we finished the 2025 years, so we do have end of year financials. This These are unaudited at present. The audit will commence once we get through tax season, and will be complete in time for our June annual report. But this is a very simple and straightforward graph for everyone to look at, and I'm just going to touch on 25 outcomes, and I know Pat is going to dig into bigger picture SABR finances. But we budgeted for a deficit in 2025 of around $122,000. And the principal reason for that was we wanted to make investments in growing the organization, particularly focusing on the institutional memberships that I highlighted earlier, and also wanting to make the investments to continue to be a very research forward organization and continue to be able to attract individuals who are really focused on research, not just as a passion project, but principally as maybe as a career. And so a number of different cost centers associated with that. But as you can see, our actual net operating outcome, we had a slight operating net in 2025, primarily because of two things. I mean, we found some cost savings in some important places, but then we also greatly exceeded our budgeted revenue around donations. And so our net operating revenue was actually in the black in 25. And when you consider the outcomes of our investments in 25, and then also taking into account the collections that we added to the balance sheet for the first time in 25, we ended up with a six-figure net income on the balance sheet. And so what should have been a six-figure cash deficit for us this year, we actually ended up with a cash surplus in 25. So had a fantastic financial outcome at the end of 2025. So turning the calendar and talking about a few of the things that have happened already in 2026, even though it's still early March. We do have an updated research resources page. We sent some communications out about that very early in the year. Very excited about what we've done there. Specifically, we've created a single sign-on that integrates with the SABR website rather than making use of a third-party website that's connected to our association management system. This is a lot cleaner for us operationally. That single sign-on is something that we can continue to leverage, and the staff is looking at other things that we could migrate over to the primary website rather than using that third-party site. Our research grants program, which was part of this broader membership development initiative that I referenced as a significant investment by the board. We launched that this year. The submission window just closed. We had a tremendous amount of interest in this program. We had 28 unique research project submissions as part of this. Very excited for that in a first year. The program definitely highlights the possibility that we should try to find additional funding for projects like this. So very excited for that moving forward. SABR Day was held January 31st. That continues to be a great way for all of our chapters to engage in programming. We had 47 different chapters participate in SABR Day across the US and Canada. Our local grants program is a program we've been doing for, I would say, around 5 years now. That program has had that program this year had 21 applications, and we were able to fund 5 of those projects. And then 2 weeks ago, we held our annual SABR Analytics Conference, which continues to be one of SABR's signature events. Um, and we're fortunate enough to have more than 900 attendees virtually and in person, and that does make that conference our most attended event through the calendar. So those are all the things that have happened since we gathered together for convention. Real quick, I just want to touch on some of the things that I'm excited about that are yet to come this year. First and foremost, we're going to be rolling out the analytics certification courses that I referenced earlier. Those will be available in Spanish very soon this year. So excited to expand that line into a market that I think SABR historically has underserved. We have 3 major conferences coming, and I would have included the 19th Century Conference. So I'm not selling the 19th Century Conference short here, but they're already sold out. They don't have any space, and so it doesn't do me any good to tell you guys to go attend to that. So the Jerry Malloy Negro League Conference will be in Memphis, June 18 through 21. Convention this year, Saber 54, is in Cleveland, July 29 through August 2nd. And the Saber IWBC Women in Baseball Conference is online. That is September 18 through 20. So some great conferences still to come. And then we have Sabres All Eras team, and I teased this in an email to membership not that long ago, but I'm going to tease it just a little bit more with this group in the form of a logo. We've got a full announcement coming later this month. In a nutshell, members are going to have the opportunity to vote to create the best teams, including managers and executives from 6 different eras of baseball history. We're going to use this promotional period and historical exploration as a way to grow membership, hopefully. So when we send out the full announcement, there'll be details on a promotional price and a member referral incentive that'll be announced with the rest of the program. I hope if you've had any friends sitting on the fence that you can use this as a way to get them off the fence. There'll be a separate voting period for each of the 6 eras that we've identified. At the conclusion of that voting, we'll hold an online event that starts with an American history lecture for that time period, followed by the unveiling of the all-time team from that era. So the program will stretch from April through the end of the baseball season, and we're really excited for how members are going to respond to it. So that's my time, and we'll throw it back to Dan.
Thanks, Scott. I think that's just a great list of initiatives. And I will just add one other comment. Among all of Scott's really great qualities as a leader of our organization, I would just say one that I very much appreciate as ex-treasurer is his focus on the budget and our finances, which is not necessarily something that all CEOs look to do. So Scott, just among all the other things, we very much appreciate that. So, 2 key functions of the board are chapter and committee support, which Allison's going to talk about in a minute. Another is finance and budget, which Pat's going to talk about in a minute as well. So right now, our broader activity is a refresh of our strategic plan. Our previous plan was for about 5 years, and it's run its course. And now we need and we want a revised plan that can guide SABR, over the coming years. So for planning purposes, we have broken this down into what we're calling 4 perspectives. There's naturally some overlap among them, but for each of these perspectives, we will have multiple initiatives that we will come up with to support each of these. And some of them are the kind of things that obviously we've just been talking about, or Scott's just been talking about a couple of minutes ago. So one of those perspectives is membership, growing, solidifying, and engaging the membership community in multiple and interesting ways. A second is financial and governance. This is around assuring the long-term stability of the organization. So sound financial strategy, solid risk management, and then, sort of obviously effective governance. A third is our external connections. So here we're looking at existing and new mutually beneficial relationships with external organizations. And I think that there's a lot of really interesting opportunities here. Again, I think we've just started to touch the surface of what can happen in this perspective, if you will. And then the fourth is organizational capabilities. This perspective is a focus on our processes, our research resources, again, which Scott referred to, and um, and our public profile. So what does our public profile look like? How can that be enhanced, and in what areas and ways can we enhance that? So, we're really excited about the changes, or that what we can do here. What we've accomplished in the last 5 years has really been, I think, astounding, and we're very much excited about our opportunities over the next several years. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Allison to talk about chapters and committees.
Thanks, Dan. For those who don't know me, my name is Allison Levin. I am your SABR Board Vice President. I'm going to, as Dan mentioned, talk a little bit about chapters and then committees. I'm going to go a little bit back with the chapters just because we've made a lot of changes over the last couple of years, and I haven't gotten a chance to talk to membership. So I wanted to make sure everybody understands exactly what we've done. So starting off with chapters, right now we have 83 chapters registered with SABR, including the international chapters. And as I mentioned, you may have noticed some changes with your chapter over the last few years as we rolled out new initiatives. While chapters vary in programming, membership, and objectives, we've been working hard to ensure that the member experience is exceptional across the board. The goal is not to homogenize chapters, but to ensure that members have a great experience, regardless of which chapter they belong to or what meeting they attend. As such, in 2023, we introduced a governance handbook and a best practices handbook to chapters. These handbooks provide transparency and assistance to all chapters, helping them receive the support they need to be the strongest chapters they can be. Within this, we introduced the starting lineup requirement that we expect chapters to meet. For chapters that fall below that level, I reach out to provide assistance, either to help them meet the standards they failed to achieve or to help them revitalize the chapter leadership if they have fallen dormant. I won't bore you by reading the full list of requirements for the starting lineup, but two core elements a chapter needs to meet are having elections and holding both an in-person and virtual meeting each year. For chapters that have met the starting lineup status, they can try to achieve All-Star and MVP status. Each adds more goals for the chapter to meet beyond the starting lineup requirements. I would be remiss if I did not mention here how instrumental Jessica Smith is in helping chapters obtain and maintain their status. If you have any questions about existing chapters, please contact Jessica, as she is your point person. Jessica and I are currently updating the governance and best practice handbooks to make them even more useful for leaders and to reflect the changes in the organization, and we will introduce them to chapters later this summer. Looking at committees, we currently have 36 registered research committees and 5 chartered communities. Much like chapters, we want to ensure that all committees and communities are active and representative of the SABR experience. Again, this is not to homogenize the committees, but rather to allow each committee to move forward with its research objectives while ensuring SABR members have a great experience. To meet these objectives, we introduced the Committee Governance and Standards Handbook last July. We have set a benchmark for all committees reaching the starting lineup status by May 2027. Again, I won't bore you by reading the list of requirements for committee starting lineup status, but it does include several key requirements designed to help and grow the committee, build leadership opportunities within the committee, and ensure member opportunities. To that end, starting lineup status includes leadership elections at least every 3 years, one in-person or virtual meeting each year, an active research project that the committee is pursuing, and quarterly communications with the committee membership through a newsletter, blog, website, or similar channel. As with the chapters, committees can meet additional objectives to reach all-star or MVP status. As we are collecting committee reports for starting lineup and above this year, I expect we will find some committees that are no longer pursuing research and some that need a leadership change or a committee revamp. In those instances, please watch for emails from me this summer, as that is a great opportunity for interested members to get involved with SABR. As a few final notes, I want to mention that newsletters are increasingly important for both chapters and committees under our current guidelines. I recently started an email group for all newsletter editors to share best practices and ask each other questions. If you or somebody in your chapter or committee you feel like should be in that group, please let me know so we can make sure they get added to the list. Finally, we continue with our inclusive leadership training for both chapter and committee leaders. We have contracted with the VIA group for last year's training. They conducted the training on a pro bono basis, and we had very favorable feedback, and will continue to move forward with leadership training through them in the coming year. As that wraps up my report, I'll turn it over to Pat Philippon for our treasurer's report.
Great. Thanks, Allison. Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight. It's a delight for me to get to speak with you, and so you can see me and hear from me, new on the board, new as a treasurer, but not new to SABR. So I'll take a little bit of my background, present that, and then get into the nuts and bolts of the financial report for this meeting. But my passion for baseball has been since I was born, basically. I mean, as a kid, and I knew I wanted to be involved. And I graduated college late 80s and started in minor league baseball in 1991 in Prince William in the Carolina League, and then became general manager of Prince William in 1993, and haven't missed a game since 91. My GM pass taking me from Prince William to Rancho Cucamonga, Fresno with the Pacific Coast League, and then up to Stockton, where I'm sitting now at the ballpark speaking with everybody. And our company now that I'm the president, as Dan referenced, seventh inning stretch, we own and operate 3 teams. So the Stockton Ports, the Everett Aqua Sox, and the Delmarva Shorebirds. So I bounce around a lot, live in Stockton, but you'll see me at ballparks all over the place throughout the year. And at the end of the day, I'm a minor league baseball lover, person, admirer, even though I've given my career to it. It's a great product. I love what it represents to the game, the communities, and everything about it. I mean, I could talk ad infinitum about what I think about minor league baseball. Particular passions of baseball that I have is bio info and Bill Weiss questionnaires and stuff. I volunteered a couple years ago to help transcribe those to the group that was leading that, which was a passion project for me since I was able to work with Bill for 5 years in the Cal League, which pretty much concluded his efforts, unfortunately. But, you know, technology and things passed by the old filling in the questionnaires, and those things are amazing, as we all know that are on this call, preaching to the choir, obviously. But what he represented and what he did was fantastic. So that's certainly been a highlight of mine, working with him the brief period I did. I wish I would have enjoyed it even more than I did, but it was a lot of fun. As far as SABR, I mean, the importance of SABR to me, and I know the baseball community is strong. My first chapter meeting I attended was late 80s in DC. I've spoken at chapter meetings just throughout my career. Whenever I can be involved, I have been involved. I've hosted chapters in various cities at our ballparks. And reviewing some of the information that I got, I noticed the name of Dave Vincent, who I know is no longer with us, but some of you in the call may know. But, you know, I hired Dave to work in our press box in Prince William in the 90s before DC had a team. And I know he moved on and did a lot in the press box with DC, with the Nationals. So it's a pleasure for me to serve, a pleasure for me to assist in any way I can to help the organization grow, and certainly a passion project, but something that I'm very serious about and delighted to be able to do. And you know, it's a wonderful organization. I'll dive into the treasurer report. I'll be brief. Scott touched on this. The majority of what I'm going to touch on is based on our standings at the end of 2025. We enter the year 2026 with a very strong balance sheet. So kudos to management, the board, certainly before I was involved, but strong liquidity, solid reserve base. Our assets are slightly over 2 million. Our liabilities are 876,000 as of year end. So solid ratio there. The current liabilities was less than 500K. So no debt, which is a nice thing to look at as a treasurer when you're coming in, no debt. And I can report through the February financials of 26, we remain debt free. So kudos to everyone on that. Our non-liquid assets really are value creating things that I think have the future monetization potential, so which is important. Scott touched on our cash performance from last year. I mean, we exceeded target. Um, the cash in the bank was reduced slightly for the year, but we purchased the mission key asset during the year. So I think it was managed extremely well, and we're in a solid position. Revenue's grown 12.5% from 23 to 25. One of our four main buckets, Scott also touched on donations, has grown, 5 percentage points over the 3-year period. So kudos to everyone involved in that. That's certainly been a growth driver, which I can imagine with membership growing leads to the increase in donations and the institutional efforts as well. 2026, like I mentioned, off to a great start. The analytics conference exceeded target and plan, so that's nice to get something like that banked 2 months into it. We, as one of the pillars that I'm involved in, we are going to tweak how our investment review process will work. So we're working on some wording for that. But we have investable assets. They're managed by JP Morgan Chase for the most part and competently managed. But we're going to put a little more oversight on them and hopefully grow that base to be able to invest and utilize into the organization primarily, but also to grow down the road for grants, you name it, and future potential initiatives that this group comes up with. So that concludes my report. Certainly open to questions. I know I'm turning it back to Scott for the general Q&A on the organization, but again, privilege for me to serve. Very excited. It's been great meeting the folks, and I look forward to meeting as many folks as I can and getting to know you and hopefully seeing you at a ballpark during the year.
Excellent. Thank you, Pat. So I put this in the chat, but just to avoid trying to locate where people are speaking, if you do have questions, please use the chat function. That will be the most expeditious way for us to manage those questions. And it's been relayed to me that evidently I shared my notes when I shared my screen. So thankfully I didn't leave any jokes for myself inside of those notes this time around. So,
Hot Mike.
all right, we got any questions that people want to put in the chat here? It's going to be a short meeting otherwise. All right, Don. Okay, here we go. All right, so Surya says more of a comment that he's willing to help out. In terms of oversight, he's got his own background includes a bachelor's degree in finance, so that's great to know. And Pat, definitely something to take note of if we're pulling a group together to oversee the investments. So, question here from Don. Don, good to hear from you. What is the current membership total, and is it growing? So, this is a very topical question. So, as of earlier today, our membership total was 7,915. Now, I want to say that some of that's a weird timing construct. Our analytics conference was 2 weeks earlier than it normally is each year. And we have a cohort of students that flow through the organization annually as part of the analytics conference. We have implemented a number of different programs to try to increase our retention rates with those students specifically. But the reality is there is a high level of turnover and churn inside of that group. And so 7915, I would say over the next couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, probably going to see that number go down by about 300 to 350. So I think our real number is around 7,600, give or take, which is an increase from this time last year, but not a major one. So we're definitely in a period where it's a bit of a plateau in terms of our overall membership numbers, but something that the staff is planning to attack with a number of initiatives throughout the year.
Well, Scott, just in fairness, why don't you give a little bit of a background so where we were maybe 3 and 6 and 10 years ago, because I think that really highlights sort of the excitement that I think is
Yeah,
around the
yeah,
organization.
yeah. That's fair. So as this time or maybe February of 2019, so that would have been 7 years ago. Um, our actual membership number was probably somewhere between 4,800 and 5,000 members. And so to be at 7,600 right now feels good. Feels like we've squeezed a lot of growth, and the thing that we need to continue to focus on is finding new members. Our retention rates we've been able to increase greatly over the last few years, and that's been a big reason for our growth. And Jessica Smith does a great job of managing our membership program. But that specifically, we have a global retention rate somewhere between 85 and 88% across the entirety of the organization. Um, and and that number is roughly reflective of first years are about 65%, second year members are about 75%, and once you're a third year member, you're identical to that global retention rate. So that's kind of the deal. And so the math problem for us at our current um, total number of members is just figuring out how we can scale new members on an annual basis. So if we can start to unlock some things there, we could find ourselves at 10,000 pretty quickly. So Larry McGill, excited about the eras teams. Can you share the eras? I might make a mistake. So Dan, do you have it off the top of your head? Otherwise, there's somebody else in this meeting I'm going to call on.
I'm like you. I could probably do it off the top of my head, but I don't want to make a mistake. But I'll give it a try, and someone else can correct me. I think we're sort of 19th century dead ball era, 1920 to 1947, 1947 to 1975, 1976 to 2000, and then the 21st century.
I believe that's correct. I believe. Oh, Mark Armour's shaking his head, so I'm
Oh
going to go ahead and
no!
invite him. I'm
Oh,
going
I
to
thought
invite
I
him. I'm
had
going
it.
to invite him to unmute and correct the errors.
Okay, Dan was pretty close. So the integration era is 1920 to 1946, I believe, and I think that was close to what you said. 40 and then 47 to 72 and 73 to 99. And I think that there's like 50 ways this could be split up. I think we were trying to get them roughly the same size. And I think we used the designated hitter as the excuse for starting a new era then, and then the 21st century. So I'd give Dan a solid A minus for his effort there.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. And thank Mark is chairing this committee, which also has subcommittees over each of the eras. So he and that group have been working very hard the last few months. Alec has a great question. He asks if we can get Mark DeRosa gift membership. I think maybe the entirety of USA Baseball might need something. That seemed more of an organizational failure. Um, I guess we're recording this. I shouldn't be so blunt. Let's see. Bill Marston, of the 900 attendees at Analytics, how many were in person? Just over 400. So I think we had around 425 total people in person at the analytics conference, and it's a mix of fully registered attendees, sponsors from the industry, which includes major league clubs, data organizations, technology companies, things like that, and then student attendees. That's sort of the makeup and composition of the room at the analytics conference. Uh, Jason Schwartz, three quick things. The single sign-on seems to be a nice improvement, so thank you. That's great to hear, Jason. You're welcome. Two, congrats to SABR Jefferson Burdick Award winner Gary C., who's on the call. I actually see Gary. He's near the top of my screen. I don't know where he is on others, but good to see you, Gary. And then three, regarding Seamheads, did we buy the database or are we licensing the data? Great question. The answer is somewhere in between. We've entered into an agreement with Seamheads where we're licensing the data for a term, and at the end of that term, we own it. So sort of a hybrid, and a big part of that, and Seamheads is great to work with, but obviously they poured a lot of labor into developing that over the years, and then with the recognition that has occurred by both SABR, but in their world, more importantly, Major League Baseball, they are taking the appropriate steps from a business perspective to protect the database as an asset, and so that's the reason for the term being a license initially, and then converting to full ownership. So, Surya, with a question, in terms of non-liquid assets that have monetization potential, what does that look like, and have there been any projections made about that yet? So, Pat, I'm going to give my voice a rest and let you give the first answer, and I'll probably have a couple additional comments.
Sure, Scott, thanks. Thanks for the question. Yeah, what I reference are the databases that overlap and the other research things that we have. The thought process and the board discussions that I've been involved in is content-driven potential of what we, possess, have license rights to. How can we slice and dice it to potentially generate revenue in a different form? Maybe it is increased memberships, maybe it's some other things that we can come up with. So infancy, from my mind, Scott, you could correct me, or Dan, you can correct me from there. Maybe you guys have worked on something along those lines, but that's what I was referencing, the chance to take this data that we have and, potentially data's content, right? So slice it and dice it in a way that's attractive to maybe new membership, new eyeballs, new organizations that have interest in it, that we can provide something that's compelling that we can monetize.
Yeah, that's exactly correct from my perspective, and a big reason why we made the tweak to the research resources page was to make sure that it was visible to people who were encountering the organization for the first time, so that they would have a full understanding of the scope of the resources that we can provide to our members. And we had been hiding that well behind the paywall in a place where people were unable to see what one of the major benefits of being a member was. And so the single sign-on is part of that very intentional pursuit of using our collections, our assets to drive membership. The other one that's there is the Rucker Archive, which is a tremendous asset for us from a balance sheet perspective. It has the greatest value, and there's a lot of volume there. And we do see revenue associated with the licensing of those images, but it's probably today it's still probably a fraction of what it could be. So. Bruce asks, does SABR have a budget for the 2026 fiscal year? What are the revenue and spending forecasts? I probably should have had that sitting in front of me. Pat or Dan, do you?
I can affirmatively answer that we do have a budget that was done in advance of my placement on the board. I assume I have a copy of it handy. Dan, if you do, you can dive in, but I know I have it here. So repeat the question, Scott.
Just looking for the top and bottom line numbers, the revenue and spending forecasts, or revenue and expense budgets, I'm assuming is what Bruce is pointing at there.
Yes. So on the approved 2026 operating budget, total revenue right below 1.4 million, 1.398 to be exact. Expenses 1.494. So budgeting again a deficit of $96,200. So that's the approved budget figures. As far as the background on where we got to those numbers, I think Scott or Dan, if you could jump in, I'd appreciate it since I was not involved in the process.
Sure, no problem. I think the big thing for everyone on this call to be aware of is that the budgeted deficit for this year is part of the continued investment that I referenced in my report, where we are putting the organization's resources into programming that we feel is going to drive additional engagement with like-minded organizations under the belief that we're going to be able to cultivate membership, we're going to be able to cultivate relationships and incremental programming through those external relationships. So that's why on paper we're budgeting for a deficit. Myself and the staff, pretty competitive group, and so I would be surprised if we end up needing all of that deficit by year's end. So we'll see. Winston has a question. First SABR meeting. Welcome. As a student member for the SABR conference in Cleveland, I know there's a student discount. Is there a way I can get a further discount by volunteering at the event? Winston, go ahead and send the staff an email here and we'll happy to chat with you. Jeff Mills, are there plans for more topical webinars throughout the season similar to last season? Great idea and very enjoyable. So thank you for that, Jeff. And we were able to do, I think, 3 of those last year. We did the biomechanist discussion talking about the Tommy John epidemic, not academic epidemic. We did the torpedo bats discussion, and then we had the Pete Rose. There we go. The discussion about Pete Rose and what could happen down the road with his Hall of Fame candidacy. The staff would love to continue those, and the challenge is, I think all 3 of them were sort of lightning in a bottle. We found ourselves uniquely positioned to pull in the right speakers to put that on, and that I guess has not presented itself since. So if the opportunity is there, we really want to continue to be able to do that. Bill Perch, I apologize. I did not mean to skip you here. So I'm back to your question in the queue. Are there specific targets for new institutional memberships annually? So I'm going to actually ask you to unmute because I'm going to respond with a question. Do you mean in the aggregate or in terms of the organizations that we're targeting?
Just wondering if you're targeting just like 10 new per year, whatever that might be. So
yeah, I got you. We'd like to be around 24 by the end of this year, and then we believe that those will scale multi-directionally because we believe the more institutional partners that we have, the more it becomes a club that you want to be a part of. But then parallel to that, there are the institutions themselves are sort of the parent member, and the members of the institution are the children, right? And so like the longer that those relationships go on, it's our expectation that there'll be more people who are part of that institution as well who want to be part of the group. And so we're under the belief that as we continue to grow this, there will become a point where it grows quickly. So let's see. All right, so Ed Fong, we got your question answered previously, so I'm not ignoring you, but I think we covered it. Mike O'Hare, is there anything being discussed about trying to attract younger members? I apologize, my mouse is dying, so I need to get it plugged in while we go. But yes, we're always talking about this. And the thing that I'll say, and this gets asked every year at convention as well, and the room at convention looks a lot like the room that I'm looking at on my screen tonight, demographically anyway. And it's difficult to give this answer because for that reason it's unsatisfying, but the organization's a lot younger than everyone thinks. We have more than 1,200 student members that are part of SABR. And the reality is many of them are single issue participants would be the best way to put it. Their principal engagement is around our analytics offerings. They are looking to SABR as an organization that can aid them in their professional pursuits at the moment. And we would love to expand beyond that, but I also think that at the moment we maybe haven't done as much as we could to acquire as many of those younger potential members as we could. So I think the next course of action for us is going to be to try to acquire even more student members, continuing to use our place in the analytics community as a driver to that. Excuse me. And then once we think that we've maybe hit an upper limit there, then to continue to expand out and look for additional opportunities. But we are aware that student members are not as engaged at the chapter level, and certainly not engaged in governance. And I think organizationally, our mentality is that's okay. And we need to think about organizationally how to build a path for them to become lifetime members so that SABR is important to them even after their career launches.
Let me just add too that, as I mentioned, one of our 4 perspectives for the strategic plan is membership. And one of the initiatives under that membership is clearly how do we attract younger members, and that's something that we've talked about a lot and are looking at various options. And I would just say that one of the things that Scott has really helped us focus on is it's not just attracting new members, but it's how do you get them to that year 3 where their retention rate starts to be where everybody else's is. So yes, it's something that's very important to the board.
Agreed. Dixie made a great comment about the FRED, the 19th Century Conference, very impassioned, and I agree with everything you said, Dixie. So thank you for that. Joe Adona, is there anything in place or in planning that will allow the leaders of the regional chapters to correspond? For example, to discuss challenges, discuss initiatives they have underway, discuss recruiting methods, potentially collaborate on projects, etc. So Joe, I would welcome your feedback via email. But we do currently have a chapter leaders email group for people to be able to discuss. And then Jessica puts on a quarterly chapter leaders meeting as well, broadly for the same purpose. So if we need to be providing additional outlets and additional resources, we definitely want to hear about it. Allison, anything you would add to that?
No, I mean the chapter email list does not get used as much as I think we'd like to see it get used. There's often very good feedback if someone reaches out through that email list. It's something Jessica and I have talked about. So, please use that email list if you're a chapter leader and you have questions. You will get a response, even if it's not used as frequently as you would like to see it. You can always send something there and people always respond.
Thank you. Steve Dunn asks, do you have an age breakdown of the current membership? We do not, and the reason for that is we do not require people to complete their date of birth when joining, simply because we wanted to reduce the amount of information you had to provide to become a SABR member. Andy McHugh, good to hear from you, sir. We seem to have a solid base, and we spent the last 5 years or so building up our management infrastructure with new positions. Now I'd suggest it's time to add a research component to the staff by hiring someone with the skills of a research librarian and or web manager. This person would look to understand, rationalize, expand our research resources, as well as council members who have research questions. This would help us keep our focus on our core purpose. I think that's a great statement, Andy. And I know that it's a priority for the board in this strategic plan. And I think there's a number of different ways to approach that end outcome. And I'm looking forward to working on that with the board. Dan, I don't know if you've got anything to add there.
Nothing too specific, Andy. I know you and I have talked about this before. I'm in SABR because I'm a baseball research guy. And it's clearly part of our strategic plan. Exactly what form that'll take, it's hard to know at this point.
Surya asks, wait, the entire 21st century is going to be one team. Yes, but several other eras are even more compressed. So it's going to be an interesting vote. Stu asks, the SABR site is going to recognize Negro Leagues of 1949 to 50. Did I hear that right? And MLB takes it through 1948. So will SABR and MLB have different career totals for Willie Mays? Okay. Great question, Stu. And actually, the answer to that is SABR, a couple of years ago, actually recognized the Negro American League in the seasons of 1949 and 1950, as well as several independent black baseball teams predating 1920 as major. SABR has not, previous to controlling the layman database, had any sort of statistical record. And to your point about Willie Mays' career, at some point we certainly could. Our point of view with the layman database has been that it's a collection of professional baseball stats, not that it's SABR's leaderboard, but a possible topic of organizational discussion in the future. All right, Wayne. For growing membership and marketing purposes, you might find that the term SABR is associated only with modern analytics that don't necessarily appeal to everyone. New ways of analyzing player performance are fine, but they're not crucial to my enjoyment of baseball. SABR's emphasis on baseball history, both locally and nationally, should be made clear in communications to non-members. It's why I'm a member. I think it's a totally fair point. The analogy that I always share with people is that in many ways, sabermetrics is the highest peak on which the organization has planted a flag, and yet there may be the fewest members standing around that flag at various points. And so, I do always feel bad for baseball fans who only know SABR for analytics, even though I personally love analytics, because I think they're missing out. But it's also my job and the staff's job to make sure that people know us for a lot of different things. So I think a fair point there, Wayne.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't, it's hard to know how to really to address this, right? We have something like what you probably said it, Allison, and I was probably looking at notes or something, 32, 33 committees. One of them's the statistics still analysis committee, and the others are all pretty much non-statistics committees. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the concern because obviously we want to appeal to all the people out there who love all that stuff about our committees and all the other stuff we do. Um, it's just hard given that the word sabermetrics is in the mainstream press to get around that. But I, it's it's not the case. So I, it's something we need to talk about and figure out how to address.
Yeah, to your point, Dan, there's 36 current research committees, and I think two of them are not centered around more traditional baseball research. So it is just getting that message out. And once people join, they find their place in SABR. And for the majority of people, that's not around analytics or AI or anything like that.
Ed Fong asks, do we have enough cash reserves to cover the 2026 deficit? What are the beginning year cash reserves on the balance sheet? So I'll defer the second question to Pat and answer the first myself. Yes, we have plenty of cash reserves to cover the 26 budgeted deficit.
Yes, and we finished the year end with 321.8 in cash and just below 900,000 in cash and investable in investment accounts. So over $1 million in cash. So the answer is yes, and that's grown through the end of February. The cash, not investment assets, is over 500K now, primarily due to the success of the analytics conference. So. We're in very strong cash position, and as I mentioned earlier, debt free. So,
Tim Christ, do we have any sort of collegiate analytics program / contest to drive younger members? Are all 30 MLB teams active members or have at least one active member? Are we connected to any baseball foundations for joint programming opportunities? So I'll try to tackle this one at a time. So as part of the analytics conference, we do put on a collegiate competition. Typically, there are 16 to 20 teams, teams of up to 5 individuals competing in that. That's held on the Friday morning of the conference. There is definitely appetite to expand that, both in terms of team competitions, but then we could also look to get into maybe more individual competitions that would be styled more like a hackathon. And really the limiting factor to get those programs off the ground is just staff bandwidth. It's a meaningful lift to create those things. Are all 30 MLB teams active members or have at least one active member? I don't know. I haven't done an audit of it. I would venture to say roughly yes, with several clubs overrepresented in that grouping. And then, are we connected to any baseball foundations for joint programming opportunities? This is an initiative that we want to get. We want to make more robust. It's definitely something to expect to see in the final version of the strategic plan in some way, shape, or form. And I would go so far as to say that we would go beyond baseball in that realm and look more at organizations that are more known for history, with the belief that we could come in as the fun baseball people next to the drier regional history that maybe they're providing. So I think a few different ways to approach that, but joint programming with other organizations is definitely an area where we want to expand. Marlene, is the percentage of women members increasing? Yes, not at the rate everyone wanting to hear, but it is increasing year over year, bit by bit. Our relationship with the IWBC has been very helpful there, and the leadership of the Women in Baseball Committee um, continues to produce a lot of positive results for the organization. So appreciative of both of those groups and the work that they do for SABR. Alec asks, have we thought about a student WhatsApp group to build and maintain community? Yeah, I think that's an option. Discord would be another place where I think maybe we could take the conversation to them in a place they're comfortable. So good ideas. Okay, Ray, have we analyzed the student member group as to how many are in college, how many are looking toward careers in baseball management, and how many are, like many older members, simply love the game and its rich history? Doing so could allow us to concentrate on the possibly unique interests of this group to draw them to SABR. Yeah, I think that's totally fair, Ray. I think that's totally fair to ask that. I think we'd have to spend some time designing a survey to get to an answer, but there's worthwhile questions in there for sure. Gary Gillette with some good news. Hello, Gary. Good to see you. Several SABR members are currently researching, compiling, vetting Negro American League statistics for the 1949 and 1950 seasons. We will soon have really good statistical coverage of the Negro American League in 1949-1950 to add to the Seamheads Major Negro League coverage that goes through 1948. So good news. Good news there. Sorry, I'm scrolling live, right? So I apologize if this is takes time. Let's see. Claudia. Oh, where'd it go? Here we go. Finding a way to target historical societies and how SABR can help tell their stories is worth considering. As a board member of one of them and talking with others, sports/baseball have probably not been an area of enough focus. I'm working on a project now, and SABR has been amazing. Claudia, we'd love to talk to you. If you would be so kind as to send the staff a note, we can find you in the directory too. But it'd be great to make the connection and learn a little bit more about it because we're definitely seeing things similarly here. Steve Dunn, a big baseball event will be held at Hoyt Sherman Place in Des Moines, Iowa in late May. Is SABR involved in this? Hoyt Sherman's son was one of the founders of Des Moines' first professional baseball team in 1887, and the son was a nephew of General William Tecumseh Sherman. That's really fun, Steve. If SABR is involved, it's at the chapter level. I'm not aware of anything at the headquarters level, but I'm hopeful that the chapter is engaged on that. Craig, if the unthinkable happens during the 26-27 off season, are we preparing just in case? Any lessons learned from 1994-95? Did our membership take a hit as people soured on baseball, or did it grow as people looked at baseball's past? So, Craig, this is a one-liner that I've said before, but it is actually technically true. The absence of baseball is actually very good for SABR. Membership grew during the players' strike that you referenced. It also grew at the beginning of the pandemic before when we were unclear as to whether or not there'd be a baseball season in 2020. I say that tongue firmly in cheek because I, like everyone else on this call, wants baseball to be played next season. We are prepared for that in a number of different ways. Specifically, our convention site planning has made preparations in 27 to make that accommodation. I'm going to hold that close to my vest until making the formal announcement in Cleveland. I might have gotten through all the questions. So Dan, I can turn it back to you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Thanks, Scott, Allison, Pat, for being part of this, and of course, Scott, for answering and leading all the question and answers. So again, thanks to everyone for joining us. Please feel free to reach out to any of us afterward with any questions.